Agroecology Fund. I'm very happy to be here and very happy that you're able to join us today. Today we have the privilege of engaging in a conversation about agroecology entrepreneurship and territorial markets. And we have a terrific panel to provide their perspectives. And then as well, we hope that we'll have the opportunity to hear from you with your questions and your observations. So to get us started, I just want to say a couple of framing words and pass the microphone around. So food is certainly not a global economy. Food is certainly not a global commodity. It is not the same as a refrigerator or a car. It's embedded in food is local culture and economy, soil, biodiversity, and human rights. So why do we treat markets and enterprises for food the same way as we do for cars? Why are we using industrial markets and global supply chains to feed our communities? Well, today we have many people that have joined us for this conversation because through agroecology, each of us in our own corner of the world are all seeking to restore basic human rights, health, livelihoods, biodiversity, and climate resilience to what has become a very sick food system. And too often we think of social movements separate from enterprise development. But what if agroecological entrepreneurs were part of social movements? What if by joining forces with civil society organizations, they could become more powerful advocates for credit, for technical assistance, for accessible markets? What if mayors investing in their local territorial markets felt themselves part of a growing agroecology movement and also accountable to their constituents seeking to feed their families with healthy foods? Today, we'll hear from speakers grounded in local experiences in both Africa and Latin America. They are strengthening agroecology movements with a focus on enterprises and markets. So we thank you so much for joining the conversation. That's sure to be very illuminating, and we look forward to your participation as well. Just a couple of quick housekeeping things here today. Please, as I mentioned before, use the chat to introduce yourselves. And we have interpretation in the interpretation button down on the lower part of your screen, and you'll find interpretation there. And we will, if you have questions or comments during the course of the webinar, please put them into the chat. So with that said, I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, Catherine, just to help us with a couple of questions that we want to ask you to get a sense of who's here in the room with us today. So it's kind of a poll that we hope will allow us to see one another, even though we're spread far apart and through this virtual mechanism. So Catherine, can you share the polls? Okay. So these polls are multilingual, you can see there, and we are just looking to get a sense of who's in the room. What region are you from? So please take a second to click on your answer, and the results of the poll will show themselves. So we'll just give a couple of minutes. If you can take a look at this poll on the screen, we offer Latin America, North America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Oceania. If you can find your region, please do click on the. Great, when the numbers are coming up, good to see. So we have a nice spread of participants from around the world, especially from Latin America, North America, Africa, and Europe. We just got a colleague joining us from Asia. Thank you very much. Okay, well, so you can see, I think you all can see the screen, quite a number of participants from Latin America, North America, Africa, and Europe. Great, very welcome. Okay, let's move on to the next. Thank you, Catherine, for moving the slide.
They are all in the same. People are able to answer the three first questions.
But the screen is still showing the what I'm seeing on the screen. Or maybe that's just my, I see, just go down. So then we've asked what kind of organization do you work with? And we're asking whether you work with a farmers organization, an indigenous peoples organization, an NGO, a governmental organization, university and research organization, or a philanthropic organization, or maybe a little bit of a combination of many of those. So please take a second to populate that. And let's see who we have on the call with us today. Great, so we have a variety of organizations represented. We need those public officials where it looks like we're a little, oh, and then we just got a governmental organization. Wonderful. Okay, let's just give it one more minute. And then let's move down to the poll to the third question, which is that I'm attending this webinar because, why am I here today? So we have whether this might be a new theme for me, just coming to learn for the first time. I work in this field, which appears to be get the most answers thus far. I buy food from territorial markets or agroecological enterprises. Some of you clicked on that. And then I do research on this topic, and a few of you clicked on that as well. So thank you so much. This really gives us a sense of who's with us today. Appreciate your participation. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jen Estoni, to give a little bit of a background of how we approach this topic here at the Agroecology Fund. Thank you so much, Jen.
Great, thanks everyone. It's wonderful to be here today. Let me just get my screen up. Let me know. Oh, I still have the poll up there. There we go. Now let me get this to slide view. Don't hang on a second. Sorry. Okay, share screen. Here we go. Share and slide view. Can people see this? I hope. Okay.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Wonderful. So I am delighted to speak to you today about the work that the Agroecology Fund has been doing in partnership with many others on agroecological entrepreneurship and territorial markets over the last 2 years. And I think the most important thing to say is that this is really one of the fundamental pillars of the strategic plan moving forward. And it is embedded into the long-term direction of the fund. And it's characterized by partnership. And throughout the work that I've been involved in as a consultant on these issues for the Agroecology Fund, we've been working with long-term partners, grantees, foundations, and peer organizations on trying to examine and explore these issues. And we're supporting an agenda that's set by farmers and farmer-led organizations and bringing people together to uplift farmer and consumer-led solutions. And one of the key activities is bridging funders with grassroots movements and entrepreneurs in territorial markets. So what are some of the activities that the Agroecology Fund has been involved in? And this is a very high-level view. So obviously, grants have been dedicated to these issues. There's also been an ongoing learning through grants and conversation circles. There's been an ongoing partnership with the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa that you'll learn more about. And there's been collaboration around tools. I want to just highlight a few things about the COVID grants that's quite interesting. Among the 59 small grants that were made during the COVID pandemic, 25 of them had territorial markets as the main intervention. 23 of them included direct purchase from farmers of food and/or seed to support relief operations. And 29 of them included new modalities of marketing that were experimented during the pandemic. So I think this just illustrates the dynamism and learning that's been going on in this community. So what are some of the learnings that we've had? Well, I've been working closely with our colleagues in Africa, and I think there's some key findings that we've observed. One is that agroecological entrepreneurs in territorial markets really focus on indigenous foods and African consumers, and that's not a big surprise. And they're many and diverse. They're small and they're large. And they're allies of and amplify agroecology. Second, the ecosystems of support, of entrepreneurial support, are quite weak. And in general, investors do not recognize agroecology as a theme for investment. However, strategies are emerging, and we're finding that there are tools to enable investors to recognize the value of agroecology. Convenings are bringing together key partners and creating synergies. Government policies can enable states to support markets and distribution, as well as production. And there are many approaches to territorial markets and citizen engagement. So my time is up. I just want to say that the Agroecology Fund is continuously engaged in this work through grants, donor investment, webinars, and learning and research. And I look forward to exploring this with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. We're going to pass the mic over to Uganda, to our colleague, Bridget Mugambe from the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa. Thank you, Bridget. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Daniel. I am failing to start my video. I don't know why. It says the host has allowed it, but if you can see my screen, then that is fine.
We can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, good evening, good morning, good day to everyone. My name is Bridget Mugambe, and I work with the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, based in Kampala, Uganda. My presentation will basically, I will introduce AFSA in a few slides, just to give an overview of who AFSA is, for those who might not know AFSA, and then share a bit of what we have been doing with the Agroecological Fund, with the Agroecology Fund, and also our plans for the coming 3 years. So AFSA is it's a broad-based network of networks. We work in up to 50 of the 55 countries, and our membership includes a list of those there: food producers, indigenous peoples, consumers, faith-based organizations, and a list of others. Our values are self-sufficiency, local ownership, and environmental stewardship. Oh, okay. Now, this. Yes, so that is our website. We are the biggest civil society movement in Africa because of our reach and diversity of the membership. That is some of the membership, the AFSA membership, including core members, associate members, honorary members, and friends of AFSA. The context in which we work, briefly, one, we understand there is the industrial agriculture narrative that is pinning agroecology as backward, as unhygienic, as promoting poverty, and promoting the agriculture narrative that is looking towards increasing production, monocrops, use of synthetic fertilizers, the narrative that promotes industrial agricultural foods as the middle-class foods, the high-class foods. Then, of course, the worsening climate emergency, which we all know, and I think there is no longer debate on that. The increasing corporate control of our food system. We see more corporate companies dictating the food system, what is flown where, what is advertised as food. The changing understanding of food narratives that I've mentioned also above. The rapidly expanding and unplanned urbanization and impacts of COVID-19, which are still with us. Yeah, in terms of our work, AFSA has 4 strategic working areas. One is focused on integrating agroecology and climate action, strengthening farmer managed systems, empowering community voices for land rights and healthy soils, and mobilizing citizen support for sustainable food and nutrition systems. Our work on agroecological entrepreneurship and territorial markets falls within citizen support for sustainable food and nutrition systems. And I'll just briefly share with you just a little of what some of the exciting projects that we have within the 4 working areas. One is on healthy soils and healthy foods, where we promote healthy soil practices, training of and working with soil centers across Africa, working with practitioners to be able to revive our soils, but also promote healthy soil and water conservation systems. Integrating agroecology and climate emergence policies. We are working with 12 African countries, one to understand climate policies and climate adaptation and mitigation measures, and how we can integrate agroecology into these different policy areas. In this, we work at the national, regional, and at the global level. At the African food policy, which we've been engaging with since 2019, is also about dialoguing. We've had dialogues in 23 African countries to understand what is the food situation, what are the food-related policies, and also how do we promote comprehensive African food policy. With this, we are linking with the African Union and pursuing an African food policy at the regional level, but also within the 23 countries. My Food is African campaign is a new and exciting campaign that will be launched in October on World Food Day, but it's already being launched in African countries like Zimbabwe. That is also intended, one, to dispel the narrative around African foods, to promote the consumption of African foods, public support for African foods, for the local food cuisine, the preparation, to be able to put it to where it is supposed to be, to talk about the value, the health benefits attached to it, and the like. So I will now speak about the work that we've been doing with the Agroecology Fund on agroecological entrepreneurship. The aim is to support the growing fields of African agroecological entrepreneurs and territorial markets, and to provide space for agroecological and like-minded actors to deliberate and shape the direction of agroecological entrepreneurship and territorial markets in Africa. In 2018, during the 3rd AFSA Biennial Food Systems Conference, which was held online with about 200 plus African and other participants, one of the key recommendations was the need to explore this space, to explore how we can link the food we advocate for to also the markets, to the entrepreneurs, to understand who is out there as an entrepreneur, who is an agroecological entrepreneur, what are the markets, what are the challenges, to just understand the landscape. So building on these and conversations with others like Agroecology Fund, we got into this work. So some of the key activities and milestones that we've undertaken in partnership. One, we undertook national research in 19 African countries, so the countries, to really understand who are the entrepreneurs, what are they, how do we describe them, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and the research happened in all those countries. The reports are shared on the AFSA website. That was the purpose, like I've mentioned, to analyze the existing enterprises and the service providers, and to understand how to enlist those emerging enterprises in creating an enabling environment for agroecology. So some of the key findings from the research: one, agroecological entrepreneurs are many and diverse. Like Jen has also mentioned in her initial presentation, they engage in varied activities, including processing, production, marketing, cooperatives. They are committed to using local knowledge to enhance production, value addition, and other activities. One challenge that cuts across is that most funding that is within agroecological entrepreneurs is either self-funded or small market circles. There's limited public and private finance to AAEs. The policy support is also still limited. Most African policies look towards advancing supermarkets and other kind of markets, and less towards agroecological entrepreneurs and territorial markets. We also see that they are thriving and expanding despite the limited public support. And this, I think, was clearly also evidenced during COVID-19. Many African countries were able to survive getting into a situation of famine with all the closed borders because of territorial markets, because of agroecological entrepreneurs. Of course, they operate in different settings, both rural and urban. They're innovative. They innovate to create markets, for example, joint marketing, moving markets from one region to another. So there is a lot of innovation around that. And of course, there is increased local food diversity and nutrition. There are a number of findings, but these are some of the key and common findings.
We can take a few more minutes, Bridget, please. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Yes, this is the second major activity, which was a convening of agroecological entrepreneurs and territorial markets actors. It was held in Kampala and had over 20 countries participating. It was opened by the Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda, and it had a number of good deliberations. It had also market visits. That's a visit to one of the territorial markets in Uganda and one of the agroecological centers in Uganda, where we had interactions with the entrepreneurs, but also with the market leaders. These are some of the key recommendations that came out of the convening around research and advocacy, grant making towards AAEs, finance for country level gatherings. And these are some of the media links from that convening. So these are some of the supporting organizations for the convening. The plans for 2023-2025, what AFSA proposes is to support agroecological enterprises and territorial markets in 6 African countries through an improved policy environment, interaction, connectivity, and increased grant and capital investment. The specific objectives speak to strengthening the ecosystem of support services, generating policy suggestions for government programs to create an enabling environment, boosting demand for territorial markets, and increasing recognition of and investment in agroecological entrepreneurs and territorial markets. These are the proposed actions. They are still broad, as it is work that is in progress, promoting territorial markets for agroecological products, strengthening support for African agroecological entrepreneurs, supporting development and implementation of policies, citizen engagement, increasing citizen engagement, strengthening gender mainstreaming, because we see still, even if there's a relatively higher participation of women and youth in territorial markets, still the men dominate, then deepening youth engagements. These are the expected outcomes in the next 3 years. We hope to see greater support for AAEs and teams, visible networks, increased funding, and policies formulated or amended to support AAEs and territorial markets. Thank you so much, and apologies for shooting over my time.
Not at all. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Bridget. And yeah, for those of us, many of us on this call had the opportunity to participate in the convening that Bridget described in Kampala just some months back. It's wonderful to see all the work plan shaping up, coming together for the follow-up, because it's clearly there's much to do, and AFSA is in a great position to be able to move this work forward on the African continent. Well, let's move to Senegal, to the Casamance region of Senegal, and hear from our colleague Mariama Sonko. And Mariama is an entrepreneur, so let's look at her, get a chance to hear from her about how she's building out her business in something called Sumpak. So thank you, Mariam. And if Mariama will speak in French. So you will, if you don't speak French, please use the interpretation button down at the bottom of your screen and choose the appropriate language. Thank you. Mariama, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, Daniel, bonjour. Je souhaiterais vraiment partager ma présentation sur l'écran, mais je ne suis pas trop fan. Je ne connais pas trop. Donc, je voudrais un peu partager mon expérience sur mon entreprise de production d'alternatives sur les bouillons comme exauteur à nos repas. Et par rapport à ça, vraiment, l'historique, c'est depuis les années 70-80, il y a eu l'implantation des usines de production de bouillons industriels en Afrique, accompagnée de publicité et de marketing offensif auprès des consommateurs avec l'utilisation de la télé, des radios et de l'Internet. Le constat est qu'il y a eu un excès d'utilisation de manière inconsciente de ces bouillons industriels dans les repas par les ménages, plus précisément au Sénégal. Donc, nous avons constaté que les cuisinières font mijoter 5 cubes dans leur plat, ce qui correspond à un apport de 15% en fer de la valeur quotidienne recommandée. Le sel contenu dans un cube magique est de 40 à 50%, selon l'explication de Florence Faucon, une nutritionniste française. Donc, ceci a vraiment fait l'apparition de plus en plus fréquente des maladies cardiovasculaires, d'hypertension, d'insuffisance rénale, jadis inconnues dans certaines communautés. Et aujourd'hui, la solution que nous avons vraiment proposée, c'est la production de bouillons naturels à base de produits locaux qui vont non seulement rehausser le goût de nos repas, mais nous apporter des nutriments qui contribuent au renforcement de la santé humaine. Donc, nous allons aussi créer des emplois à partir de cette alternative et augmenter les revenus des femmes qui seront dans ces petites unités de transformation et de commercialisation, valoriser le savoir-faire local et le consommer local, valorisation des produits locaux à haute valeur nutritive, préservation de l'environnement pour une exploitation rationnelle et responsable, et matières premières pour faciliter leur renouvellement et le renforcement de la santé des consommateurs. Et pour cela, vraiment, l'alternative s'appelle Sumpak, qui est un exauteur de goût fait de mélange de plusieurs épices, riche en fer et toute autre vitamine en saveur des vertus sanitaires. Nous avons fabriqué 2 bouillons, un à base de crevettes destiné à la préparation de sauces à base de viande. Ce bouillon est composé de crevettes, feuilles d'oignon vert, sel, ail, poivron, piment, calice d'oseille blanche, jus de citron, poisson sec, feuilles de laurier, gingembre. Et l'autre est préparé à base de netetu ou sumbala, qui sont des noix de néré, une plante forestière, vraiment thérapeutique, pour la préparation de sauces à base de poisson ou de feuilles. Ainsi, je voulais vous faire voir, puisque je n'ai pas pu manipuler mon écran, toutes les photos sur le processus de la fabrication de ce bouillon. Les succès du Sumpak, vraiment, il y a une forte demande des consommateurs à la base. Et il y a une appropriation de ce bouillon naturel Sumpak par les consommateurs pour en témoigner la forte demande du produit. Il y a l'accessibilité par rapport au prix parce qu'il y a des châssis de 25 à 1000 francs. Il y a l'amélioration de la santé des consommations, plus particulièrement les vieilles personnes qui ont eu à faire des témoignages. La valorisation de nos produits locaux et de nos savoir-faire. Le renforcement de l'économie locale, l'amélioration des revenus des producteurs et productrices. Nous avons eu la formation de 20 leaders paysans sur les techniques de production de bouillon naturel, Sumpak et son utilisation en cuisine. La formation des animateurs radio, communautaires et leaders paysans en marketing pour la promotion de ce bouillon, l'élaboration et diffusion de spots sur 4 langues locales, Jola, français, Wolof et Manding. Et les difficultés et contraintes, vraiment, c'est l'accès difficile aux équipements et des outils de transformation. Il y a le manque de fonds de roulement, l'absence de soutien pour le packaging, accès difficile aux emballages biodégradables, absence de soutien et d'accompagnement pour la mise en place des unités semi-industrielles au niveau communautaire, accès difficile aux médias, télévision pour la promotion de nos produits au grand public, approvisionnement difficile des matières de base, nerfs et crevettes, donc déboisement massif d'arbres forestières utiles à l'utilisation. Et Sumpak, les offres, quelles sont les offres aujourd'hui? Il faut améliorer le système de production et la promotion du produit. Le produit doit permettre de faire la promotion des produits locaux, la promotion de l'agroécologie et du consommé local, d'améliorer les revenus des productrices et producteurs, créer de l'emploi et enfin améliorer la santé des consommateurs. Une unité de production sera alimentée par les petites unités de base de transformation, n'était tout, produits halieutiques, produits maraîchers par les femmes. Et le recrutement d'un personnel d'appui à la transformation sera composé essentiellement de femmes rurales. Et les postes à promouvoir se déclineront comme suit: la chargée de l'approvisionnement, de la transformation, du marketing, la chargée de stock, la trésorière. Donc, ce sont ces différents postes que nous préconisons vraiment mettre en place toutefois que l'unité sera mise en place. Concernant l'aspect commercialisation, des cantines seront installées dans les régions de l'Afrique et des accords commerciaux seront négociés avec d'autres réseaux sous demande pour faciliter l'accès à tous. Pour le marketing, on fait passer des spots dans les radios communautaires partenaires du mouvement. Il est également prévu de fonctionner des brochures sur le Sumpak avec l'appui des techniciens de la santé nutritionnelle. Le produit du bouillon naturel, comme on l'appelle, pénètre de plus en plus les foyers. Et par rapport à la rencontre de Ouganda, vraiment, qui concernait les entreprises agroécologiques africaines et des marchés territoriaux, durant cette rencontre qui s'était articulée autour de 4 domaines thématiques de discussion, à savoir les marchés territoriaux, les systèmes de soutien, les politiques d'habilitation, les consommateurs. Vraiment, moi, j'étais dans le groupe des entrepreneurs agroécologiques parce qu'aujourd'hui, j'ai une ferme agroécologie où nous donnons de la formation, de la démonstration sur les bonnes pratiques agroécologiques. Et au niveau de ça, de ce groupe, vraiment, nous avons pu identifier 8 thématiques sur lesquelles nous avons discuté et même proposé des solutions, à savoir le financement des entreprises agroécologiques, le réseautage, l'évaluation environnementale et sociale, la certification des produits agroécologiques, les ressources productives, le renforcement de capacités, le business model, l'organisation et harmonisation des systèmes de partage de connaissances, qui toutefois soutenus peuvent solutionner les changements climatiques au niveau de nos zones d'intervention. Et pour perspectives et recommandations, faire des lobbying auprès des décideurs et de l'OAPI pour faciliter la protection des innovations agroécologiques. Mettre au cœur de la stratégie des partenaires d'appui une politique de promotion de capitalisation des connaissances endogènes africaines, l'accès des entreprises agroécologiques aux services d'études d'impact environnemental, mise en place d'un prix pour les meilleurs producteurs agroécologiques, partager et vulgariser les 13 principes sur l'agroécologie, faire un plaidoyer à l'endroit de nos décideurs et les partenaires financiers et faciliter le partenariat public et privé, création d'une plateforme dédiée à l'entreprise agroécologique africaine, mise en place d'un système d'information multicanaux, médias sociaux, télévisés, etc. Donc, je vous remercie de votre attention. C'est ce que j'avais à partager avec vous. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Mariama. Thank you so much, Mariama. That was great to get an inside view of your business. And I can see from the chat that there's already interest in Sumpak from Togo and from Mexico. So I know there's a chat there about what are the ingredients. So let's share the knowledge. We're now going to turn to our colleagues in Peru. And they're going to be joining us live from a group of them that are assembled on an altiplano, a high place in the plains of the Peruvian mountains. So we are joined today by three speakers who are from the Andes Association and Chalakuy Parque, and they are Maritza Churata Tito, Alberto Conde Dueñas, and Tammy Stenner. Joining us from Peru. So please, our Peruvian colleagues, please take the mic and take the camera. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Nosotros vamos a presentar en español, entonces verán la traducción ahí. Y somos tres que vamos a hablar. Y cuando habla Maritza, Ricardo, que está a mi lado, va a traducir al español. Ella va a presentar en quechua. Pero ya empezamos con las palabras de Alberto.
Bien, muy buenos días a todos los participantes de parte del Parque Chalakuy. Mi nombre es Alberto Conde Dueñas, técnico comunal de la comunidad de Rosaspata. Y nosotros acá estamos participando, todos los técnicos del Parque Chalakuy, y estamos pocos por motivos que ha pasado un accidente y de nuestra compañera de una técnica, su esposo ha dejado de existir, por ese motivo no está presente acá, y también nuestro compañero Víctor no está presente por esos motivos. Está haciendo reunión en la municipalidad y entonces acá nosotros nomás estamos participando y del Parque Chalakuy, y un parque Chalakuy, un territorio patrimonio biocultural, y comunidades indígenas como Achín, Choquecancha, que trabajamos nosotros agroecológico, y también estamos en la altura más o menos de 4.800 sobre el nivel del mar. En esa altura, en esa altitud estamos nosotros acá participando en esta reunión. Y también, tema 2, en la agricultura. Nosotros somos agricultores que trabajamos productos bioculturales, como papa y otros productos, maíz, quinoa, todo lo que produce en la zona acá en el Parque Chalakuy, nosotros trabajamos. Y nosotros trabajamos para intercambio y un poco de venta acá en el Parque Chalakuy. Y hacemos el trueque de nuestros, que ha existido de nuestros anteriores. Y eso nosotros estamos siguiendo el trueque como de parte media, de parte abajo y de parte alta. Hacemos el trueque, el intercambio de nuestros productos para nuestro consumo humano. Y también la municipalidad ha sacado una ordenanza municipal para el Parque Chalakuy. Una ordenanza municipal para el Parque Chalakuy. Para proteger de nuestros antepasados. Y sería todo mi exposición de acá del Parque Chalakuy. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, Alberto. Ahora va a hablar un poco más sobre los mercados de trueque, o chalay, plaza chalay, que ha mencionado Alberto. Maritza es participante en los mercados y también es un experto local, técnico local, como Alberto. Y Ricardo va a traducir. Sí.
Bueno, participantes, muy buenos días. No capas técnica comunal de Choquicancha, Marixa Churatatito. No rimemos sobre funcionamiento del mercado de trueque. Sí, funcionamiento de mercado trueque y minan apacunchita. Parte media, parte alto, parte baja. Parte media peapa con chi mercado trueque ima chi más apa con warmikuna más tachita no kayku chalayku mercado truequita.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Marisa Churata, soy de la comunidad campesina de Choquecancha, soy técnica comunal y trabajo con Asociación Andes, ¿no? Voy a hablar un poquito sobre mercado trueque que nos han dejado nuestros ancestros, ¿no? Entonces, este mercado trueque realizamos mayoritariamente las mujeres, ¿no? Ese mercado trueque concentrado está en parte media. Los del valle vienen frutas, los de medio vienen papa, maíz, otros productos cereales, y los de parte alta vienen chuño, moraya y papa.
Ima chi importante kaman. Importante chi más no kayku chi truequisqayku mana qullqiyku kaqtinpis chi truequisqayku más importante chi truequillawan rantikuyku imana claseta productuta productuykupis rantikan nuqayku papa, sara, tukuytapis nuqayku ch'uñu chaykunawan canjikuyku, cambiayku, chalakuyku chayta nuqayku wawaykupaqpis más chay nutritivo kaqtin nuqayku chaykunawanpis más chalakuyku y qullqiyku pisi kaqtin más antigua nuqayku naykota manan nuqayku qunqaykumanchu chay más importante nuqaykupaq wawaykutapis yachachiyku uchuy kasqanmantapacha.
¿Por qué el mercado trueque es muy importante? Porque uno es soberanía alimentaria para nuestros hijos, también para dar una comida balanceada. También a nuestras hijas mujeres, enseñamos desde niña, ¿no? Cómo tiene que realizar el trueque. Esas cosas nosotros enseñamos, ¿no? Y asimismo también es una cultura, también nuestra tradición que nos ha dejado nuestros ancestros. Y también tenemos papa, chuño y maíz, ¿no? Con eso hacemos un intercambio. Es poca economía, más priorizamos nuestro costumbre trueque.
Chaymantapis kanmanmi chay trueque nuqayku invitariykuman turismo qala chay a nivel Peru manta hamuqkunata ima kunatapis venderinaykupaq chayta nuqaykupis invitariykuman.
Mm, bueno, en primer lugar, segundo lugar, quiero mencionarte es el trueque, no utilizamos balanza, sino más utilizamos unos puñados o canastas como tradiciones y con eso calculamos, ¿no? Es una amistad, tenemos con quien realizamos el trueque, ya nosotros entre mujeres ya nos conocemos con las personas que traen fruta, las personas que traen papa, ¿no? Es una nutritiva también. Apoyamos a las personas mayores haciendo mercado trueque, apoyamos a las personas huérfanos, baja recurso económico. Entonces, el trueque es una soberanía alimentaria, más que todo soberanía de producto, ¿no? Y también mantenemos diversidades de semillas, a productos, ¿no? Haciendo trueque, ¿no? Y eso es como un camino, los cultivos caminan parte alta, parte baja, parte media, ¿no? Y final de cuentas, les quisiera invitar a los compañeros que quieren ver ese trueque, quizás que nos visitan acá el Parque Chalakuy y al Perú, ¿no? Cómo realizamos nuestras actividades trueque, ¿no? Y estamos un poquito escalando, ya no estamos entre nosotros, también estamos con Parque La Papa, con Parque Chalakuy, ¿no? Con maíz, con papa. Muchísimas gracias.
Chile llaman compañeros y ya faltaban llaman. Gracias.
Eso todo quería compartir mi experiencia. Estaría dispuesta para responder las preguntas, ¿no?
Bueno, gracias. Yo voy a hablar un poco sobre un estudio que hemos hecho acá en el Parque Chalakuy. Antes de que sea el Parque Chalakuy, empezó un estudiante PhD, Neus Martí, ha venido de España y ha hecho un estudio muy, muy detallado sobre el mercado de trueque, sobre el número, género de participantes, productos intercambiados, el peso de productos que pasan por el mercado anualmente. Y eso ha hecho entre 2002 y 2003 y ha sido entonces como 5.600 kilos anualmente que intercambiaban sin dinero. Y recién hemos vuelto a repetir la investigación. El año pasado, con apoyo del Fondo de Agroecología, hemos hecho una investigación no tan completo como el de hace 20 años, pero ha sido interesante ver la evolución del mercado. Ahora es un poco menos el peso de productos, es como 3.800 kilos que pasan por año, pero en la zona baja la participación es casi igual. Sigue siendo muy importante uh, ese mercado alternativo, ¿no? de trueque. Pero en la zona más alta ha bajado un poco la participación. Pero igual los resultados que tenemos realmente coinciden con lo que han mencionado nuestros colegas, la importancia de trueque en mantener diversidad de cultivos, de semillas, también para soberanía alimentaria. Gente sin ingresos, sin dinero, pueden participar, pueden tener dietas muy diversas porque están intercambiando en todos los niveles. Mantiene también relaciones recíprocas entre amigos, entre familiares, como ha mencionado también Maritza. Y también creemos que ese tipo de mercado ofrece muchas lecciones que pueden beneficiar a gente de otros lugares. Los valores, las prácticas de trueque tiene potencial de apoyar prácticas agroecológicas en sí, pero también como estrategias de adaptación y mitigación frente al cambio climático. Ofrece alternativa a los mercados capitalistas donde participamos todos. Entonces van a seguir produciendo por ellos mismos el trueque del sustento local. también lo vemos como un modelo que sirve para otros lugares. Bueno, ahí lo dejo. Gracias.
Muchas gracias al equipo de Perú. Thank you very much to the Peruvian team. That was really fantastic to hear about the barter markets and to get to see photos and see the lovely landscape where you're sitting. And we express our deep condolences for the loss of your colleague. We now want to take the opportunity to hear from you all, the participants in this webinar, which are now over 100. Really happy to see interest in this topic from all over the world. So what we'd like to do is have you raise hands if you would like to make a point, to make an observation, or ask a question. And then we'll be able to unmute you from our end. But before we turn to the questions, we want to just put in front of you a little poll just to get a sense of some of the questions, some of the experiences you come to this webinar with. So if you could just take a minute, for those of you that are able to on your computers, to look at the poll that my colleague Catherine is going to present, just to get a sense of what are the biggest challenges that you're experiencing or observing regarding agroecological territorial markets and enterprises. And you can see here, some of the responses are not enough production, lack of financing, difficult logistics, lack of know-how, inadequate legislation. Let me just scroll down a little bit more here. So if you could just take a second, it'll give us a sense of what are some of the issues: competition with supermarkets, insufficient demand, and there's also a place to describe other, if none of these speak to your experience and you'd like to interject something else. So let's just take a minute and see what comes out of this quick poll. And of course, these are just some of the challenges that we thought to collect to present to you. And please, again, if there are other things, feel free to add those as well. So just looking how these things are coming together here, financing, not surprisingly, is emerging as a very big issue, lack of financing, with about 60% of respondents. We see that there's not enough production. Nearly half of people are saying that the logistics are difficult, precarious logistics, very common problem faced. Lack of know-how, inadequate legislation, so kind of the enabling environment, the laws and ordinances and policies in favor of territorial markets and agroecological enterprises is lacking. There's limited consumer support, although that's less, so it probably demonstrates that consumers indeed would like to consume healthy agroecological food. Insufficient demand is also kind of not rated as highly. So there, I think we can see that they're actually, again, within the communities and the families, they would like to be eating this food. And competition with supermarkets, kind of what we talked about at the very beginning about the global supply chain, that is something that a challenge that you all are facing. So that's great. Really appreciate this opportunity to get a glimpse of some of the challenges that we're facing. So now with that, if you would like to make a comment or a question, please do. If you can raise your hand, that would be helpful. And my colleague will unmute you. And then what we'll do here, thank you to the speakers, is if you can just listen and jot down some of these questions may be for you, a specific person. Then we'll unmute you in a bit so that you can respond generally or to questions that have been posed to you. We noticed a couple of questions for specific speakers in the chat. So we can summarize those as well so that you can get to those questions. So thank you so much. Please, the floor is open. And Catherine, I'm not sure I can see the raised hands, so maybe you can, oh, there we go. Let's see what, there's a number of people that have raised their hands. How do I see this? Catherine, if you see a name and can unmute them, why don't you say the name, because I can't seem to see them.
Yeah. Let's start with Manolo Vega. You should have the option now to unmute your mic.
And of course, speak in whatever language is appropriate for you.
Sorry, I just noticed the unmute microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to participate in this session today. Really impressive experiences. Just want to say that I'm part of an organization based in Mexico City. We launched a triple impact investment fund. When I say triple impact, is social, economic, and environmental impact fund. And we're interested in finding agroecological projects in Latin America to explore collaborations with mainly, well, both financial and non-financial resources. So just wanted to say that. So if you can put us in contact with the projects that you're close with and need either financial or non-financial resources, we would be very happy to explore them together with you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Manolo. And if you could put any appropriate contact information in the chat, that would be great. But so noted. Thank you for that. Catherine, another speaker?
Yes, let's continue with Mamilani Ginyaku.
Oui, allô, bonsoir à tout le monde. Vous m'entendez?
Oui,
Oui.
c'est bon.
Allô?
Oui,
Okay.
suivez.
Merci pour la section. Merci aussi aux différents participants. Merci aussi aux présentations. Et ma question, j'ai une question pour AFSA. Je suis Nyaku du Togo. J'ai pu avoir la chance de participer à l'analyse des entreprises agroécologiques commanditées par AFSA et puis Agroecology Fund. À quel niveau on en est au-delà des différentes recommandations après l'analyse? Parce que bon, je crois que les différents ceux qui ont participé à l'analyse ont peut-être pu, n'est-ce pas, définir clairement leurs besoins, leurs difficultés et comment est-ce qu'ils actionnent les leviers pour que chaque entreprise qui a pu participer à l'étude puisse être à hauteur. Voilà un peu ma question.
Thank you, Mamilani. Important question posed to, I believe that would be for Bridget from the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa and perhaps Mariama as well. But let's hold off on responses until we get a few more questions, please. Please go ahead, Catherine.
Yes, let's continue with Ueseni Uwe Draogo.
Bonsoir, moi je m'appelle Ousseini Ouedraogo, je suis burkinabé, je suis le secrétaire exécutif d'Europa. Merci de cette initiative et merci à tous ceux qui ont fait des présentations. J'ai quelques commentaires, pas des questions en tant que telles, mais c'est surtout des commentaires. La question des politiques. Il y a peut-être 10 ans, on se battait pour qu'il y ait véritablement des politiques qui accompagnent la transition agroécologique. Maintenant, notre combat est double. Non seulement qu'il y ait des politiques, mais véritablement des politiques appropriées. Parce que pour plusieurs raisons, l'agroécologie est de plus en plus au cœur des agendas de développement. Ça fait que beaucoup d'acteurs qui n'étaient pas dans ce domaine viennent avec, pas par conviction, mais développent plutôt des stratégies de captage de ressources. Nos décideurs politiques sont également dans ça. Et ça ne va pas servir forcément notre cause. Donc, on veut des politiques, mais on veut de bonnes politiques. C'est ça notre combat actuellement. Pour les marchés territoriaux, on a répondu au questionnaire tout de suite, mais il n'y a pas une réponse universelle. Nous avons fait une étude sur les marchés territoriaux en Afrique de l'Ouest avec la FAO, on travaille sur la question, mais d'un pays à l'autre, on voit d'énormes difficultés, d'énormes différences. Il y a des pays où c'est la question de la législation qui pose problème. Dans d'autres, c'est le financement. Et dans certains pays, c'est la mobilisation et l'organisation même des acteurs. Donc, il n'y a pas une situation universelle comme ça. Donc, on a répondu, mais selon les cas, selon les pays, selon les régions, il y a une grande diversité. Vraiment, merci de cette initiative. Et bonsoir, bonne continuation.
Thank you, Husseini. Catherine, are there more people with their hands raised?
Yes, we had also received a question from Nadej Gai. If you want to speak with your mic, I will give you the access. And if there is an issue, let's continue with Andrew Kirabira.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you very much for this. Mine is maybe like a comment, and I'm wondering aloud because I'm currently undertaking a study in agroecology in Uganda, how to promote agroecologically produced coffee. But one of the reasons, one of the challenges farmers have interacted with are finding is in this country where I am actually, Uganda, the cooperative movement is not very active. I can say it is not there. Now, because agroecological practices involve rejuvenating the ecosystems, you find over an area, you find that farmers don't have any mobilization to that effect. It is creating a big challenge, yet the individual farmers can see the benefits of agroecology, but putting it in practice, and yet even in the markets, the agroecologically produced coffee does not have any competitive market advantage, is a very big problem. How can farmers of such areas, I believe even many parts of Africa, have that challenge? How can they go about it? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Is Nadej able to participate? You had your hand up before. Okay, I think there's a few more hands raised, and then we've also received some questions in the Q&A module at the bottom of your screen. So you feel free to also add questions there or in the chat. Catherine, is there another speaker to recognize?
Yes, I see that Nadej is trying to open her mic.
Oui. Oui. D'accord, merci beaucoup. Je suis Nadej de Juve, Côte d'Ivoire. Et merci aux présentateurs pour tout ce que nous avons pu voir là, maintenant. Et je voulais m'adresser principalement aux entrepreneurs eux-mêmes en demandant quel est le processus qu'ils ont respecté pour avoir le soutien des consommateurs. Quel est le processus qu'ils ont suivi pour avoir le soutien des consommateurs? Voilà, pour les différentes entreprises. Agroecologie. Merci.
We also received a question from Judith Bakira.
Great question. Thank you. Catherine, are there other people in the queue?
Yes, Judith already has her mic open.
Okay. Hello, this is Patrick Kiria from Sino Fruits, Uganda. Yes. And it's something about the eroded purchasing power of consumers. And how can we continuously educate the consumers to still buy despite the eroded power? And also, how can we connect with each other? AFSA recently took us to Ethiopia, and I saw this similarity in terms of rural food availability and local music, the connection between local food and local music. How can we bring this together into a business? Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Catherine, feel free to open the mic for somebody else.
Yes, we have two speakers that can open their mics. First, we have Mor Diop. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour
Hello.
tout le monde. Oui, bonjour, vous m'entendez?
Oui, oui, parfaitement.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Je m'appelle Mor Diop, je suis sénégalais. Je travaille dans une organisation paysanne qui fait la promotion de l'agroécologie au niveau du Sénégal. Merci d'abord aux présentateurs pour les documentations qui nous ont servi. Moi, j'ai deux questions. L'une, c'est par rapport à M. Daniel. Je voudrais savoir, est-ce que le fonds agroécologique, est-ce que le fonds agroécologique est susceptible de travailler avec les organisations locales, organisations paysannes locales? Et si oui, quelles sont les démarches à faire? L'autre également, c'est par rapport aux panélistes. Et c'est surtout orienté vers le marché territorial. Je voudrais savoir si au niveau des marchés domestiques, on constate qu'au niveau des marchés domestiques, c'est des marchés qui souffrent véritablement une pénétration au niveau des marchés qui sont où on vend les produits conventionnels avec des prix réglementaires. Je voudrais savoir quelles sont les stratégies que ces panélistes-là ont développées pour pouvoir vendre leurs produits bio sur les marchés conventionnels. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. And let's continue with Mwenda Mbaka. And
Merci.
right after, we will finish with Fido Pakati.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you very much for excellent presentations. My question is to Brigitte Mugambe. I sincerely appreciate her presentation, and of course, I appreciate everybody else's presentation. My question is there a proactive campaign to promote agroecology and agroecological foods in East Africa? And if yes, what is the status? What is being done? And as I ask this, I'm very clear in the back of my mind that social media is a very powerful tool, especially when we target the majority of the consumers who are the youth. I think the majority of the consumers globally are the youth, but they're the ones who are passive, will passively consume foods which are not necessarily of agroecological backgrounds if they're not sufficiently sensitized. I speak this coming from an area in Kenya where I'm aware that some people think that it is retrogressive to consume indigenous foods, which are usually produced under agroecological conditions, and which basically happens passively, not necessarily because the people are really clear or aware of the concept of agroecology. It just happens to be the best practice possible in certain situations. And then my question to anybody in the panel is, just like I've asked Brigitte Mugambe, what is happening in Africa? Is there a pushback, perhaps, from those who promote non-agroecological approaches or the so-called modern technologies to increase food security in Africa due to the usually, in my view, misperceived perception that people cannot produce sufficient food unless they use modern technology, which is definitely destructive to the environment and not sustainable in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mwenda.
Hello,
And
everyone.
we have one last question. Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I have a question to any of the to Pindo Wushe Party from South Africa.
Yes, go ahead, please. Thank you. I don't know if we've lost Pindo.
I'm still here.
Please go ahead, speak.
Yes, about the pricing of the produce. Like, don't you get a competition from the bigger retail stores, maybe selling something with the lesser price while you're going to go with a bigger price? And also, which is the method that they use in order to sustain selling your own produce, which you produce using agroecological methods, to sustain it as a business, to sustain a livelihood. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm clear.
Yes, very clear. Thank you so much, Pindo. And then so we're going to close up the questions now and turn it back over to the panelists for summary and final words. Just a couple of other things that we had received by the question and answer module here. One question about how agroecology movements are strengthening sustainable development and ensuring food security. We had a question about organic agriculture and if there exist resources to support organic agriculture. And then, yes, that's it. Then we had Mwenda spoke about his questions. So thank you. Let's turn it back over. Why don't we start with Bridget, and then we'll in turn hear from Mariama and the Peruvian team. So please feel free to comment on any of the questions that were posed, either broadly posed or were posed directly to you. So please go ahead, Bridget. Just a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, I will try to pick out some of the questions. There are quite a number of them, and thank you to the participants for those questions. Maybe quickly from Mamilani, yes, I agree with you. There was a research that was undertaken, and some of the recommendations include the convening, the agroecological entrepreneurs convening that we had. And part of the other recommendations is what we hope to implement in the coming 3 years, the project proposed that I shared with you. Yes, Drog, I agree with you on the policies. I don't think there is anything much I can add there. Yes, we need adequate policies. And the challenges, yes, from the research, what we found, territorial markets have different challenges, but there are so many that are similar. They just vary in degree. For example, in terms of policies, some countries have a bit of favorable policies, others do not. So we see that they don't really differ so much. Mr. Mwenda, maybe to respond to your questions, yes, there are a number of campaigns that are going on advocating for agroecological foods and practices. Some of those are what I shared briefly, what AFSA is doing. For example, including the agroecological entrepreneurs and territorial markets work that we've started undertaking, the research and the convening, and what we hope to be in the 6 countries. But also AFSA is launching My Food is African campaign that I briefly mentioned. We will be officially launching it this October, but it is going to happen in 10 African countries. It has already been launched in Zimbabwe, and the main purpose is to try and create that awareness around African foods, what you mentioned on indigenous foods, you know, the wrong narrative that they're not healthy, they are not clean, they're not hygienic, to create the new narrative around nutrition and make sure that make Africans proud of their food. So yeah, there are a number of campaigns. I also agree with you on issues of domestic, of social media, and the need to include the youth. As part of the proposed project that I shared with you, youth are very central. AFSA has already started engaging with the youth in our climate crisis campaign, but also in agroecological entrepreneurs campaign. So that is very central and very critical to us. Maybe I'll leave the others to respond in case there is more time, then I can come back.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bridget. Mariama, would you like to share with us any thoughts and responses to the questions?
Merci, Daniel. Donc, par rapport aux questions qui m'ont été posées, la première question, c'est quels sont les ingrédients que compose le Sumpak? Donc, pour ça, nous avons deux alternatives de Sumpak à base de Sumbala. Là, nous y associons les feuilles vertes d'oignon, l'ail, le laurier, le poivron, les gingembres, les calices d'oseille blanche, le piment, poisson sec, jus de citron, tomate et sel. Donc, nous avons au total 12 ingrédients, épices que nous mettons ensemble. Mais dans la mise ensemble de ces bouillons, c'est basé sur des doses parce que nous avons eu à travailler avec un nutritionniste qui nous a aidés dans le métissage des épices pour avoir un produit nutritionnel, mais un produit aussi de qualité. Parce que nous ne voulons pas créer des intoxications alimentaires. Pour ne pas dire qu'on ne voudrait pas mettre un produit qui sera supérieur à l'autre qui va créer des problèmes alimentaires, des digestions. Donc, ce qui fait que nous nous sommes rapprochés des nutritionnistes pour nous aider à jauger les différents épices à mettre ensemble pour avoir un produit de qualité. Et l'autre question, c'est comment chaque entreprise agroécologique a pu être à la hauteur. Par rapport à cette question, puisque je suis dans le lot, je peux dire qu'au niveau de AFSA, nous avons un projet appelé Sol sain et alimentation saine. Et par rapport à ce projet, il y a 15 fermes agroécologiques qui ont été identifiées et qui sont qui ont l'appui et l'encadrement de AFSA dans le renforcement de capacités, dans l'équipement, dans le réseautage de ces fermes pour vraiment faciliter le renforcement des actions et du savoir entre entrepreneurs agroécologiques, mais aussi de lier la parole à l'acte. Parce que dans ces entreprises, ce ne sont pas des formations théoriques, mais nous avons des pratiques de démonstration sur les bonnes pratiques agroécologiques. Et sur ces connaissances-là, nous les partageons souvent et nous sommes souvent appuyés par AFSA selon les priorités de l'entreprise. Et par rapport à la campagne sur la promotion des produits agroécologiques, comme l'a dit Brigitte, vraiment, nous avons une campagne qu'on a dénommée « Ma nourriture est africaine » et que nous pensons que cette campagne pourra conscientiser les Africains pour vraiment les amener au consommer local. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, avec la COVID-19, nous avons eu un déclic qui montre les limites vraiment de dépendre de l'extérieur. Nous devons travailler à nous nourrir nous-mêmes et de savoir que l'Afrique ne sera pas développée par d'autres personnes, mais des Africains eux-mêmes. Et vraiment, ce sont ces réponses que j'ai par rapport aux questions que j'ai reçues. Merci.
Thank you so much, Mariama. So let's turn now back to Peru. Can you all hear us in Peru and able to comment with any final thoughts?
Oh, no, no, ya, ya. Nuestro colega Víctor ha llegado, pudo salir de su reunión un rato, entonces vamos a dejar responder a algunas preguntas a nuestro colega Víctor.
Ya, bueno, y ante todo, muy buenos días y siempre saludarles, ¿no? Y por parte del Parque Chalakuy de Lares, y bueno, en realidad nosotros acá en Lares, en las 4 comunidades tenemos, ¿no? Y Trueque, ¿no? Y también hemos aprobado en sesión de consejo en ordenanza municipal del Parque Chalakuy, ¿no? Porque ya hemos aprobado, porque ya eso es lo más importante, y además eso hemos aprobado en sesión consejo. Además, eso, por la aprobación de los consejos municipales, entonces, y también nos están apoyando bastante, ¿no? Entonces, ha salido una resolución, entonces, hay para 4 comunidades, porque además, lo más importante, además, nosotros hacemos cambio entre productores tanto de parte baja, de parte media, parte alta, ¿no? Y también es mercado trueque lleva cada semana, ¿no? O sea, lunes, martes, ¿no? O sea, cada semana. Después también nosotros no solamente hacemos, o sea, no solamente hacemos, sino que hay también en la comunidad campesina de Choquicancha y también en la comunidad campesina de Pachín y también en distritos Lares, o sea, en capital mismo también llevamos al mercado trueque. Después, en cambio, soberanía alimentaria, o sea, nosotros no dependemos de nada, sino que nosotros mismos hacemos, ¿no? O sea, además también guardamos nuestros cosechas, también de eso también nosotros hacemos trueque.
No se escucha bien, yo creo que mejor apagar la cámara. Lastimosamente. I think it's better if you turn off the camera, as I think maybe the connection is not strong enough. Por favor, Víctor, puedes seguir, pero creo que mejor apagar la cámara. Okay, we cannot hear you all from the Andes, I'm sorry. Okay, I think if it comes back, we'll get some final words from you. If not, we're going to head towards closing. There was a couple of questions about support for this work. I think Moore asked, as well as Martin, about support for local initiatives. And yes, that is why the Agroecology Fund exists. We exist to sort of strengthen agroecological food systems from the local up to the global. We have a system of working through a network of advisors around the globe. Those advisors are on our website. So we don't have an open call for proposals, but rather we count on our advisors to look around and suggest, nominate initiatives for us to work with. We are beginning to work more with regional funds that'll dig deeper into territories. So we hope, for example, in the case of West Africa, to be increasing our support into the region. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jen. Did you want to say a couple of words, Jen, about closing announcements, upcoming events that may be of interest to people?
Yes, thank you, Daniel. And thank you to all the speakers and panelists for really fabulous discussion of really both the challenges and the opportunities around agroecological production and territorial markets. And I think one of the things that I just want to take away is that there are existing indigenous networks around barter that are not related to investment, that are very critical for food sovereignty and connection. And those are definitely a key part of what the work that AFSA is doing and that the Agroecology Fund is supporting. So there are an upcoming series of webinars that are happening in conjunction with the Agroecology Fund, the Transformational Investing in Food Systems, and the Global Alliance for the Future of Food that will be focusing on food systems change and organizations that are doing that. And you can reach out to Rex Raymond for more information, and we'll be sharing more of that information, but they will be happening. And we will be continuing our research and work in this area. So please feel free to reach out to myself or any of your colleagues at the Agroecology Fund as we build and develop our learning and reporting about this work. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. And I would say that for those of you that are not on the listserv of the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, excellent news digest that's, I think it comes out every week or two. So you can learn more about how this initiative around territorial markets and agroecological enterprises will be unfolding. So check there. Please check back with the Agroecology Fund. And most importantly, it sounds like there's amazing networks across the world doing this work. And I hope that this meeting has served to make some connections among you, get to know each other better, and fortify your work together. So maybe, Catherine, if you don't mind unmuting all of us, if that's feasible, maybe we can make a little noise and thank the panelists so much for sharing their wisdom and experience with us, and thank all of the participants for joining us today. So thank you. Merci. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Close with enormous gratitude. Thank you to everybody, and we look forward to staying connected.
Thank you.
Very inspiring. Merci beaucoup. Gracias a todos.
Thank you very much. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. And we'll make
Wow.
Okay, great. Thank you. I can see people signing off and wishing this work well. Yes, we shall continue forward together. Okay.